Hello, everyone, and welcome to Celebrating Cinema, a podcast for the love of cinema. I'm your host, Laura Gommans. In this special dispatch, we have an interview with Dutch director Mees Peijnenburg about his new movie, A Family, starring Carice van Houten, which premiered at the Berlin Film Festival. It's about two kids caught in the crossfire of their parents' divorce. Nina and Eli kind of retreat into their own worlds, torn between loyalty, anger, and a longing to be seen. Through their eyes, the story unfolds from two different perspectives, revealing how love can fracture and still find its way home.
Doei.
Dag even, schat. Lekker wat is dit? Er is een afspraak, die is heel helder en duidelijk. Dus je bent 11 minuten te laat.
Ben je aan huis aan het zoeken?
Nee, niet over iets anders.
Our producer Elliot Bloom spoke to Mees Peijnenburg about his own relationship to the story and why he chose this interesting perspective. Here's Elliot and Mees.
Hi, Mees.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm talking to you a week before your film gets released here in the Netherlands.
Exciting times.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
I'm actually feeling really good. We had a world premiere in Berlin 4 or 5 weeks ago.
At the Berlinale.
At the Berlinale. And since then, we've been doing a lot of preview, a lot of secret screenings, and just testing how the audience is reacting.
Yeah.
And it's just been a warm bath so far. So I'm really in a good place.
I'm not surprised. I think we'll come to the film in a bit, but
For sure.
On the podcast, we always like to ask our guests with an opening question, what is your first memory of film or cinema?
Wow. I was thinking about this the other day because I think filmmaking is such a difficult road, and it's so tough.
Yeah.
And I kept on questioning myself recently, why do I want to make films? Why do I do things that I'm doing? Because every time I'm hitting that spot, like, oh no. And then when I was really young, I felt the world already really overwhelming and just a lot to take in. And I could hide away and feel safe in films and in stories and in fantasy. So I think the things that come to mind is like this little television that we had at home watching, I think, a Japanese film, but I should ask my father.
Really?
Yeah, it was a really beautiful film about a father and a daughter. And obviously you have The Lion King, and obviously you have, sorry, I should probably get into these because that's the real first images.
I'm so curious what this Japanese film
Yeah,
is.
it was very beautiful.
Because for context, you also grew up, you were born in Tokyo.
I was born in Tokyo, but after a year I've left.
Okay.
We moved back to the Netherlands. So my parents are from the Netherlands, and then they worked there for 4 years. Lion King, but also films like I Am Sam with Sean Penn, for instance. Also made a massive impact.
Wow. What was it about that film, for instance, that made an impact on you?
I think the dynamic between a father and a daughter and this different age and him having, it really made me sob when I was young. And I remember I had long conversations with my mother about it. I also don't know.
Wow.
And The Lion King has made a massive impact.
It's really funny that already all the stuff you're saying about being a child, finding it very overwhelming. This film, I Am Sam, the parental relationship are such big themes
Yeah, for
in
sure.
your films. And I think maybe it already relates to why you make films of wanting to question this or investigate it further. I don't know
probably. But I think as well that I came to the conclusion that hiding away or losing myself or being able to feel free in different worlds was the biggest motor of keep on watching films or reading books. But I wasn't really a big reader. I was more reading picture books.
More visual.
My sister still jokes about this, but therefore films have been the biggest safety spot. And I think, this parental, but also, later on Naked and films like At the Moment in Men has also made impact. But then I could understand cinema a bit better.
But you've been in cinema pretty much most of your life. Almost. How is that? I mean, for our listeners, you started out as a child actor.
I acted for 1 year only.
1 year, okay. But you still did, 3 films?
Yeah.
I saw?
Yeah.
What was that experience like? I always curious of kids that end up in films if it's coming from their parent or if it's also from themselves of wanting to try something.
I remember at high school we had this finishing project, and you had to write this thesis on a topic that you were interested in, and a friend of mine and we made a documentary. We were able to about how to make a film about a book that exists. So how to translate what's better, the book or the film. We were questioning all these big Dutch films that had been there. So we were questioning these directors and these writers. And then one of the directors asked, and I was loving theater. I was a big theater kid. And there was a little small theater class on school. And then suddenly one of the directors asked, do you want to audition for my film? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I got a part, and suddenly, whilst I was filming, I did another film, and then it went well. But I felt like I was so interested in all the people behind the camera, what they were doing more so than what I was doing. But at the same time, I loved all these emotions and all these feelings. Also made me really insecure in a way to stand in front of this lens and to be in that space. And so I felt like, okay, I still want to do something with cinema and film and images. Let me just try to continue on that. And then it grew naturally into... Oh yeah, also I was skateboarding. Yeah. But I was a really bad skateboarder, sadly. So I just started filming my friends and my dog. They became my...
Was the dog skateboarding as well?
No, my dog just literally... every day I was filming my dog. And my mother also recently said that when I was really young, I also made a small video on her of her that she was wiping or she was just cleaning something, she was cooking or there was something was happening. And then I kept on asking, do it again. Do it again. No, do it this way. She felt like, okay, you are a kid with an opinion about just a really simple act. So she said it came naturally in that end.
Do you think it was a sort of sense of empowerment that you felt with the camera of being able to have some sort of control, but also share your perspective of the world from that early age?
I also remember that I wanted to be a street photographer. Yeah. But then I found it really interesting. What's the space that I can own up to? And how can I take an image of somebody who doesn't know? And still, I was really inspired by all these human, honest portrayals of society in different places that weren't mine even. So I felt there's a big interest in the human or the mankind or the person that's there, that there's a way of share or loving them in a way, feeling inspired by them. Because I also really remember that when I was 17, 18, I was massively inspired by certain guys and girls who dared things that I absolutely didn't dare.
Like what?
Being very outspoken, I was just very insecure, and I felt like, that makes me, I can say things through characters or through people or through images or through places that are, a certain empowerment to feel more secure in myself. If I would dream, I would love to be better at photography.
Oh, really?
I love to make...
Because you do it still now, right?
Yeah. I'm just not that technical. Still, again, I'm interested in the eyes of the human in front of me. I'm not interested, but therefore you need to have that double. I still love it, but I'd like to do it more maybe.
I'm also curious, what's your relationship to Dutch media and Dutch film, both as a Dutch filmmaker, but also just growing up in the Netherlands? Because I always say when I interview Dutch filmmakers that, of course, you have the stereotype of it's good for a Dutch film and sort of Dutch people carrying a certain shame within their own cinema and what they make. But what I've learned from the 5 years I've been here, there is a lot of great stuff that is being made. And I wonder if you yourself share that opinion or what you're watching and this kind of stuff.
I think it's so sad that people keep saying it's good for a Dutch film. And I think we should be proud and we should be really owning up that we have amazing filmmakers in this country and there are amazing voices and there's new voices on the rise, but also there have been established filmmakers that have made so many beautiful films. And I also think we are extremely privileged with a really healthy Dutch film fund, which an amazing supporting system for talent development. So I think that was one of the big realizations when I graduated and when my graduation film went to the Berlinale and I was introduced to all these foreign filmmakers and also all these different countries that had such a different way of funding their films, and which was so harsh and difficult and made films with literally no money. And we complain and we do and well this and this and this. Obviously, the world is getting more expensive and films are getting more competitive. Yet, there's so much beauty around us. I love Dutch cinema. Yeah. And I think we should really be proud of what we're doing.
I'm glad that you share the same sentiments. The other question I'll ask, you'll probably squirm maybe at this, but I feel from my perspective that you're kind of positioned as like the voice of a generation within Dutch cinema. I don't know if you feel the same way, but how do you manage that expectation, if at all, or are you quite sort of blind to it? But
I've heard that often, and it makes you feel really strange, and at the same time flattered and thankful. Yeah. But I think I'm my biggest critique myself, so I think I will be insecure and lying in any corner at any possible stage. That's why I keep wondering, I keep questioning myself. Why do I do it? Yeah. Why do I want to make this story? Why do I want to... It keeps on coming from a place of curiosity and I'm very inspired by many filmmakers in the same generation. So I feel like there's so many great voices. So I think I'm happy to feel a safety net together that we are making something.
And you say that you're inspired by a lot of great filmmakers. I'm sure one is Lukas Dhont,
As an example,
from Belgium, who was the producer of this film.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that there's such an overlap in the themes that you two explore. What are the conversations that you both have in terms of film and the stories you want to tell? Because it's quite clear you're both focused on young adolescents and this quest to belong, or this idea that the world is very overwhelming from an early age, and that can affect how you place yourself in this world.
Lucas and I met each other at a residency we did in Paris for the Cine Fondation through the Cannes Film Festival. I remember me coming in and him opening the door for the first time, and from the get-go we felt like there's a connection, there's a thing. And then our rooms were next to each other, so we were constantly on our little balconies chit-chatting, and then we were sharing our stories. And there's a certain sensitivity and interest that is overlapping in the way we view the world, and also how we view ourselves, and how we have similar fears, I think. Or
what are those?
Many, because I think it's about just general about how overwhelming emotional or waves of information come to you on a daily, and how you respond to the world politics, or how you. But that's on a personal level. Sure. And I think we align there very well as well, and that makes you feel like, okay, what kind of questions do you set up yourself through your films? What kind of safety are we looking for? And when I came to the conclusion with the film, we're all looking for emotional safety. I felt like there is this places how to respond to the people just right next to you. Yeah. And what is also really great that I felt was with Lucas as an example, is with other filmmakers as well, but Lucas in particular. Since the world is so competitive in this filmmaking industry as well, it's really great to have somebody just on your side to share this with, and to feel secured by, and to know who has the best interest in you to make you better and make you bigger, make you grow. And if I have a poster or a trailer, he's one of the first to send it to, am I on the right path? Or do you feel like what I'm trying to portray, do you see it from, and he will see from a distance. And I think that's something that is priceless. Yeah. And in reverse as well.
But I think now maybe it's a good time to talk about A Family, which is a film about a family experience of divorce, and you tell it very much through the children's perspective. As you said before, you question yourself of why you make films. I think it's quite clear why you made this film, but why this film? I read before that you said, of course, it's very personal, and you've been waiting a long time to make this film, but why was this the moment you felt ready, or that you needed to say it now?
Good question, because I'm wondering that still, why now was the time? Because I think for a very long time I wanted to make a film about a family falling apart or fracturing, and seen from different perspectives as well. So I think over the last years, I just did a lot of research. How do family dynamics work, and how do people come out at the end of it, and how does that work for everyone? Seeing the differences of the mother, the father, the son, and the daughter, seeing from 4 different point of views. And when I finally realized that we're all, and me as a person myself, my whole life look for or search for a certain emotional safety in life, that's the core of it. So, and then I felt maybe in the right place in my own life, that I felt like now it's not necessarily that I have the right distance from my own childhood, that I felt, because I very much understand all characters, and I have been there for quite a while. So it's not... Yeah. I think maybe my growing interest in as well, in a filmmaker's point of view, to see different perspectives on one event. Yeah. That this grew and grew and grew, and then thought, the family film that I want to make should be done in this way. And once I found that hook, because what I found really interesting in the development of the film, just we focus on the kids and see reoccurring events, and we just put a microscope on certain situations. And by just shifting the lens a little bit, things come to view that were invisible before. And that was really soothing, or in a way I felt like, now I can understand, and I can express different situations or different feelings on the same event.
Just for clarification for our audiences. Oh yeah, for sure. It's that you set up, it's shown through 2 child's perspective, first Nina and then Eli. Yeah. And the idea is that we relive we re-see the same experience, but like you said, you shift it slightly towards them and see how they cope. They are coping or dealing in that situation. But
that's it. And we wanted to focus on them, because I think there's so many brilliant examples of because it's about a fracturing family. There's brilliant divorce dramas. There's Marriage Story, Kramer versus Kramer,
Yeah,
Separation, one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
And all these films are being told through the adult perspective. And we thought while we were developing, we focused first on all four the characters. So we also wrote a perspective on the mother and the father. But then it stayed too much on the surface. We couldn't go into deep enough, or it made almost a mini-series, came more to place. And then once we went into the kids, we felt like, but actually these kids have to take very adult decisions, or they have their actions are way more mature, so we can make a mirror between the kids and the adults. And the adults actually doing really childish things and behaving in despair, in their pain and in their manipulation, but really childish. So we made that mirror, and I understand this behavior of the parents very well, because it doesn't come from a place of malice or destruction, terror. It comes from a place of pain. So that was an interesting crossover from different perspectives, trying to make a mirror between the parents and the kids and showing new sides to the same story that we've told.
And I think you do a really nice job of taking the drama out of it, in the sense that it's all about the tenderness.
Because tenderness, like Joachim Trier said, tenderness is the new punk.
Exactly.
I can't agree more.
Just how you see Eli and Nina struggling within themselves or trying to cope or deal with it, rather than it's very easy to over dramatize the fighting or the arguments in between. And it's also quite brave, I think, to do that.
For me, the parents fight over 11 minutes, or they fight over a phone number. They find a fight. That's where their pain and that's where their behavior comes to the forefront. I think that is, we don't say you're the victim or you're the everyone is a loser in this situation, and everybody is in pain. I didn't want to say you have cheated or you have done that.
And how is it first directing the children in this situation? Because I think I read for your previous film, Paradise Drifters, you focus more on rehearsing behavior rather than scenes. Is that something you do here as well? You're nodding, yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love when we are rehearsing, we just rehearse the emotions, but never the scene. So I almost write a double script of just scenes that are covering that emotion as well. And that's just so we tap into that atmosphere, we tap into these feelings, but we don't already have outplayed the scene. Yeah. Same with Paradise Drifters, it was more like we rehearsed a lot of movement. We made them into how does someone walk. But here we created a Spotify playlist. We created the world around them.
Yeah.
But the boy, as an example, he didn't read the script.
Really?
Yeah, which was amazing. Which was because we felt during the first castings that he's this very clever, and he's really. She's also really clever, but she's older already, so she's on a different phase in acting.
He also needs to be clever because he has to be aware. Well, the character Eli is very attuned or aware to what is happening, like all the small subtle details.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was really fun that he wanted to. You could feel that there was an authenticity, honesty with him throwing himself into emotions, and he knew the arc from we're going from A to Z. And on the day, okay, now we're going to do this, so he could connect the dots, and he really made the puzzle himself. Therefore, we played scenes in rehearsing, and there's this is a certain emotion that we might come to. We have allowed ourselves some freedom during the shoot, knowing we had a really strict script, but then we just let it loose.
And is there anything these two in particular, the characters of Eli and Nina, showed you that you didn't realize or see initially?
The character of Nina comes to mind first is, whilst we were developing already, and I think Celeste Holsheimer, who plays Nina, really tapped into this very beautifully, in my opinion. I have seen in many films already the teenager or a 16 or 15, 17-year-old girl who's angry, shouting and screaming and being, I wanted to implode that, make the volcano inside of her, and knowing this is going to burst one day, this will explode. So build that up, and once she came to the audition, I felt like, with her, I can see everything around her, everything inside of her is in turmoil. She can tap into that, and we can let that go. And I think she tuned, and then we polished it with her in terms of clothing, in terms of every. But also, we were in the script originally. She had a boyfriend. And then we were casting all these boys, and I kept on feeling maybe it was my own interest or maybe something. I felt like there's a distance somewhere. And then Celeste, during lunch, she said, my girlfriend and I are going to do this weekend. I was like, okay. I called her at the end of the day, would you mind, or would you be interested if we also casted, or we asked some girls over for audition? And then the next week, we had this whole audition with many different people, and then immediately a spark hit when one of the girls came in, and just acting is chemistry.
Yeah.
So it could have been another person, but with these two, there was just firework. So I felt like this was something she brought herself to the table, and we adapted all around her. And I love that relationship. I think it's such a beautiful mirror with her, with the mother, with it adds massively.
And also because it's such an easy place to, again, add drama to it of like, maybe in other typical family dramas, you weaponize the fact that
she's queer.
Exactly.
Just integrate it in normal. It's a relationship, and that relationship becomes fearful because my parents are having a horrible relationship. How can I be a success if that's the outcome, or eventually the future will be? I have to sabotage this, and the relationship is still a relationship. I like that during the whole process, to keep open, to have a really big Bible inside of my pocket, but then constantly be able to be open and to change and to adapt to better ideas.
And how was it directing Carice van Houten? Because she is obviously a big star in her own right, but here she's also having to play kind of a secondary role to the kids and also through their perspective. What was that process?
Carice and I wanted to make a film with each other for a very long time. We knew each other and we just met up. Initially, just to talk about the climate crisis and social injustices in the world. And we kept on being really fired up after every coffee we had. We're like, okay, this world. And then at that moment, the film came around. And then we're like, but this is actually a match made in heaven if we do this. Knowing that it's a secondary role, knowing she hadn't been in Dutch films for a while. But I'm just so in awe of her. I think the emotional intelligence she brings to the table is so rare and so sensitive, and so it's an absolute privilege to work with that. So to direct her and to direct Peter, the father, similarly, and these kids, all these, I love working with actors. So all these four have just their own manual. And the thing that I think is the biggest compliment of all, or not thing, I think most biggest tool is just trust. Trust to make mistakes. So these kids were allowed to make every mistake they wanted, just to test out things, and Carice as well. So, and Peter, the father, as well. So we were just making mistakes with each other, but very good mistakes as well, often.
What is that like for you, though? Because I can imagine when a film is much more personal, you perhaps want to have more control over it and the direction that it's going. But whereas here, it sounds like you're giving a real sense of freedom to the characters or actors still. But is that a hard thing for you to do in this situation, or is it more natural?
I think it's very natural, to be honest. I think that's just how I can't change that. It's just a heartbeat that I follow. And when I believe something, I feel, yes, now we're on a path, and then we continue in it. And I like to work with actors who dare and free themselves to test and to fail. Yeah. So to miss. And I think that's something then we might come to a place that I have thought of before, or the other one, but I feel like then the eyes that never lie. So I'm always next to the camera and also just looking at the eyes. I have my monitor for to see the frames but I trust my DOP to the core as well. Jasper Wolf is an amazing DOP, so I feel we know which way we go, and then this chemistry, what's going on with the actors, I feel like there's a lot of conversation at forehand. There's a lot of thematical crossovers, and we know where we go. And it's not like we're like shooting a documentary there. It's like we know what we're doing, but within that space, trying to come to that honest blink in an eye.
The one thing that I keep thinking about maybe with this film is that it's somewhat timeless in a way of like it's set more maybe in the early 2000s. There's some clues in perhaps like the decorations of the bedrooms and the music, especially the song that Nina danced to, which was a great throwback. But I wonder how if this for you'd think this story changes at all if it was set in the present day where there's less physical spaces and the children are more in digital spaces, whether their reactions to such a breakdown in a family develops in the same way.
I like that question because I feel like we've been really aware of what to do with phones, for instance. How much is the digital age present? And actually in this day and age, the digital age is just present almost, like that is that's where we are living in. But I hate that. I found that for now, hate is a big word, but I found that visually at this place, in this film, not that the most interesting. I tried to avoid phones in a certain way because I would like the reaction of the eyes, as I said. I feel like that's where the tension is, and that's where instead of just through a phone, we set it in the now somehow, but also with all these elements that are from a couple of years ago, where I feel like just our own world, like we are in a big city, but we never say we're in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
As an example, which if you know, we're in Amsterdam, but we're in this space of our own design, which is really relatable, which is really realistic. I don't find phones and technology in films sometimes, in this film particularly, because we went for a very sensitive and sensorial approach, very tactile. And to have these phones pop up.
I can imagine.
But for instance, compared to when my parents divorced when I was 6, which is many years ago, there wasn't the things that are in the now really inspired the script. So for the conversation, the beginning of the film at this judge, all came from research that are happening now and didn't happen 15 years ago. So it is integrated in the now. They can write letters if they want or these things without sending too much spoilers. But yeah, spoiler, people might have seen the film. Let's hope.
And you talk about this, about it being in the eyes and tactile quality that you're looking at. I also read a bit about how you really want to build a certain cinematic language. Well, that's what you're building towards. I feel these things that you already mentioned are quite clear in that. Are there any other aspects that you are trying to develop in your language?
What I really wanted after the film, after Paradise Drifters, I wanted to strip it all down. Because I felt everything I did before Paradise Drifters was a bit more sensitive and also sensorial. And I want to test, whilst we were writing, to have no visual attraction, no visual tricks in that sense. Also very little music, no slow motion, no coolness in that way. Yet I think it looks very beautiful and it has its own language for sure, but make it very transparent. Just rely on the actors and their story. Nothing added. Which makes extremely naked, which is I'm very happy with that choice, which is it's so scary because there is no place to hide. And then when you play music, it says something. So we constructed, because it's 2 chapters, we construct the same musical piece for her chapter, and then literally the same musical piece comes for his to emphasize their loneliness and their own path. And then in the 3rd chapter, slowly music comes together. All these elements became very strong because the rest was so little.
Especially the dance scene with the dad and the 2 of them.
Exactly. So, and then the music on screen becomes massive. Then we have Bronski Beat, where they are dancing in the living room, or Alexis Jordan with Happiness, which is my favorite song, and just clashes beautifully with her inner fight.
I'm now curious of where this leaves you now. Having made this film, what are you working towards next? And more like, because your work is so focused on young characters, and I think a friend of mine is also a film director, and that's kind of what they specialize in, and they say that young characters carry like this emotional truth that you just can't find anywhere else. So I really understand why people interrogate that. But is that something that you see yourself keeping towards, or is it something you want to expand beyond, or what? How do you see your...
I'm writing a new film, but I can't, it's really in development, but it's older. It's a different age group. There is way more conflict. There's way more drama. I want to fight the other side for a second.
Yeah, you really like flipping the script on yourself again and again.
Yeah, I'm trying now because I know I will come back to my heartbeat, and my heartbeat will have this sensitiveness or this or sensitive approach, and I feel that's where I will end. Yeah, or I will navigate to. But I feel like I'm testing now to make it a bit bigger, make it more make it as also a clearer story in a certain way, or a more classical story. Yeah. But I will flip it, and then I will go with time structure or something. Maybe I feel like the development of a film is so much fun because you can go everywhere. But that said, I feel like your friend says as well, there is something that is irreplaceable with gifts that youth gives you. Yeah. But working with Carice and Peter also very much inspired me. I feel like there's another depth that I can't wait to explore. I can imagine. To see these ages. Also, I would love to make a family too with the parents. I would love that. So we're not going to do that, but I feel like that's something. There's how I'm navigating as well. I'm growing older. I'm maturing. Probably. Yeah. I feel like there's stuff that I.
Is it still that emotional safety you think that will be kind of the heartbeat of your work?
I think maybe. It's very hard to say, but I feel like what I learned once more is that the people around me in my life make my life the most beautiful life I have. And I think the search for them and the loneliness that I can feel myself when I still think the world is really challenging, and I find the world really overwhelming at most of the time. So I think finding the safe space with people around me and them shifting and that changing, I probably will come to a place in a different story that might not be completely mine, or I think it will be somewhere around there. Yeah. It will come back to the...
Well, I hope our audience goes and watch it, family.
Me too. Please.
It's a very tender film. It's a very sweet film. I think just listening to you now, it's quite special how much of you pour into these films yourself, and how much that comes out on the screen as well, and just how you think about film in general. I think it's very... I look forward to watching your future films as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
A Family will be screening at Lab 111. You can find your tickets at lab111.nl or through the link in the show notes. Stay connected with us at Celebrating Cinema and Lab by following at Lab111 on Instagram and Letterboxd. Do you love what we do? Support us by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us climb the ranks of the podcast charts. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom, and co-produced by myself, Laura Gomans. Music comes from Hugo Emmertsal, and the artwork is by Studio FFF.